Hey, everyone. It's Allie back with Awakening with Allie. So excited to have you here. If you've been here before on my show, if you're new, welcome. This show is all about awakening. What is your awakening? What woke you up? We get into the most deep conversations about people's spiritual awakenings, all about what they can do to empower themselves. And I have such an empowering woman on my show with me today. I'm so excited. I have the amazing Erika Belanger. And Erika is a yoga teacher, a somatic coach, and the host of the On and Off Your Mat podcast. For the last 8 years, Erika has helped sensitive women let go of overwhelm and overthinking by learning to manage their thoughts, feel their feelings, and heal their nervous system through mind, body, spirit practices. She's living proof of the power of self healing as she herself has grown and worked through eating disorders, chronic illness, addiction, mental illness, patterns of self sabotage, self abandonment, and childhood trauma. You guys, this woman is the real deal. She teaches online and in person for week-long retreats, bringing her students and clients on a journey of awareness, compassion, embodiment, and transformation. Y'all, this is going to be such a fun conversation. Erika, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So excited. So let's dive right in. I want to
Mm.
hear, I have heard from speaking with you, we've become friends. So I know, but I want the audience to hear and I want to hear it again. What was your awakening? Like what started that? Because I think it's so important, especially now, so many having these shifts in consciousness, so many changes going on in the world by the day, by the minute, really, to really hear your amazing story of kind of like how you woke up, what your awakening was. And then we'll get into like where you're at now and why you're such a badass.
Sure. So I'm not one of these people like, the Eckhart Tolle of the world where there was one moment in time where everything changed and I was a different person. It's more been a journey of layering, right? And a series of breakthroughs that oftentimes came from breakdowns, let's be honest, from like hitting a version of a rock bottom of, that dark night of the soul kind of part of your life, but also just moments of questioning everything and becoming aware that what you're living is kind of a lie in a way. And you're like, wow, like this makes no sense. And when you know that information, you can't go back to who you used to be. Right. So there was two types of moment of awakening, I think, in my life. There was, as I was saying, the breakdown, the breakthrough. There was like a panic attack moment of I went to this food conference that was called What Is It to Eat Normally? And I thought it was going to be like one of those that, talk about quote unquote wellness and health, but, encourages you to have disordered eating basically. But it was reversed because I was in the space and I didn't realize. And like I had a moment of like, oh, I have a problem and I had to leave and like, oh, this is not what I'm doing is not normal. This is not. And like I sat in the stall in the college bathroom and just cried and something shifted, right? A switch went on. It's like, oh, okay. I went back in and I grabbed his business card and the next day I entered like a 5-year program, like outpatient program, So like there's moments like this. There's a diagnosis that I receive of endometriosis. They say, oh, you have endometriosis stage 4, frozen pelvis. And like it explained years of chronic illness and chronic pain that finally made sense. But it was also like such a dark time because I felt so sick and disempowered and depressed and like to the point where there was no reason of living. Like, I'm not going to live in this situation. There's no point of living in this pain because all doctors were offering were opiates. They were like, here's a prescription for life, have a good life. And I knew myself enough to know that I was somewhere on the spectrum of addiction. And I was like, if I take this prescription, I'm dead in a few years. This is not a good solution for me. So this was a moment in time where there was an awakening for sure. I've had an awakening at a yoga retreat, realizing I couldn't answer like the simplest question of like, how are you doing? How do you feel? And like that sounds silly, but like we were in a circle, right? And like the first person answers something like, I'm so grateful and so beautiful and I'm so happy and excited. And then the next person, like, I'm sad and I miss my partner and I realize how much I love him. And the next, like, they all had like this answer of, and when she came to me, I just started to cry and she was like, why are you crying? Are you feeling sad too? And I was like, no, I feel nothing. like I feel nothing. I don't feel the gratitude. I don't feel the love. I don't feel the sadness. Everything is kind of just meh. Like, yeah, I'm having fun. I'm having a good time. But also, I'm completely numb. Like, that was quite an awakening. Like, oh, okay. That led me into I need a divorce. Like that was also a moment of awakening, like a separation from a partner of 15 years. Your life changes. Like you bomb your life, right? You're like, okay, now I can't go back to that person that I was before. Everything is different. And then there was also an exploration and an awakening in myself, being alone for the first time after 15 years and exploring things like my sexuality again and what's available in the world, like moving from a traditional, mostly like vanilla partnership to like, oh my God, all these things exist. Like we got together pretty young, so like you have a total new experience of life all of a sudden. And then you get heartbreaks and, things that might seem small but could be very traumatic in the grand scheme of things. And you start to understand like you're a different person every step of the way, and there's an awakening and an opening every step of the way. And then my first experience with psychedelics and eventually with plant medicine, every time there was some awakening there. So in a nutshell, that's my story of awakening, the cliff notes. Let's start here because I feel like I could talk for a long time, but I think you have some points to.
Yeah, no, I love that. Thank you for sharing that and your vulnerability around that. So, I mean, going back to kind of the beginning of your story when you were saying, I was getting chills when you were saying about how you were feeling that moment when they were like, oh, get on, this prescription, get on this, get on that, because I think we see that so much in our society that like, hey, take this pill and like you'll be all good. Hey, get on this prescription and like life will get better in a few weeks. But meanwhile, we know now for most people that's not the case. And even if it does do something, it either numbs them that you spoke to, or they get worse, or they have to get on something else because something else has an issue, and the list goes on, and then they're on it for life, right? Which we know is by design and what they want. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, for anyone who's here probably knows that, or if you're just waking up, welcome to that you can have fun doing your own research on that rabbit hole. But the reason I bring that up is because I, had chills when you were speaking to that, because I remember when I went through my postpartum depression and I was sitting at my doctor's office and I said, I'm really struggling. I don't really know what this is. I wasn't aware it was postpartum depression because obviously I was a new mom. I didn't expect to go through that. I'm a pretty happy person. So I was just kind of like, I don't know, something's wrong with me. I'm just totally like numb and off and I don't know. And I remember them being like, well, you can get on this. And I don't remember the name of the drug, but whatever. And they were like, you can get on this and probably within 4 to 6 weeks, you'll get your life back. And I remember sitting there and being like, okay, this might not be a bad idea. But then like how you were just saying, like what I heard when you were saying it was like your soul was like, yeah, no, something's not right. Like this isn't going to work. And I had the same moment. It was like, yeah, we've done the Xanax route before. We've done other things before. It didn't go so well for you. Maybe not, and it was just like that jolting moment of like, oh, I got to do something else. Oh, I got to actually like find something that like the medical, like, system isn't going to offer me and like do this exploration work, which is what you spoke to, so beautifully. And then when you talked about the layers of awakening, I loved, Erika, that you also spoke to like those openings too. It's such a powerful way to share an awakening. It's like, as you awaken, it is true. You are cracked open. You do open up more and more and more. And you have to pull back like the layers and layers to keep digging and figuring out like truly who you are and like what you're doing and what actually makes you happy. And when you were saying you were sitting there, I was like getting emotional when you were saying how, you felt numb at that retreat and they asked you like, like what's going on with you. I mean, I remember that numb feeling and you don't recognize it until you're actually called out and they ask you like, hey, how are you feeling? And you're just like, oh yeah, I can't really put anything to that. I have nothing to share because I have nothing to feel. And it's like, oh, so I mean, I feel like that's so heavy in itself. And then you just went through so much in all the different things you went through with your awakening. Like, I guess my first question to you would be, so once you kind of like jumped in and did this, like, the 5-year program, I think you said it was, after, like listening to that and being inspired and being like, oh, okay, I'm not doing things right. I need to do this. And then obviously then going to like retreats and like having these different moments. What was it for you? Like, I'm sure it was a buildup, but I would love to hear from you. Like, what was it that moved you from these little cracking openings and openings to actually allowing the opening to the shift. Because to me, it's like a timeline jump. It's like, this is where Erika could have been, but instead she went quantum because she made the choice to jump and leap. And let's be real, society doesn't teach us that. And we
No.
have to just like have the faith to be like, I'm just going to jump and I have no idea what's there. So I would love for you to share that.
I think in one word, it's intuition and like trusting myself and being okay with, I can't explain why, but this is my choice, or this is the direction I feel pulled towards, and letting go of the need to explain to people and intellectualize why this is the right decision for me or not, and just trusting that. And I've really learned to do that over the years. And when I hear whatever you call it, guidance, your wisdom, intelligence, like whatever it is, when I get that information now, I move like in a second. I jump. Like the leap, the faith there is so strong because I've practiced it over time. And I've seen the moments where I didn't listen, or I didn't quite listen yet, and it took a long time for me to finally listen. Like what happened in that gap, and like you learn, you're like, oh, the faster I listen, the easier it is. Like the less I suffer, right? Like, so as you learn, as you listen and not listen, and you compare the results, it gets easier and easier to trust and to listen, and then to just take the leap. Because what I've realized over the years is that when you do listen to that voice, when you do trust that guidance, it never takes you in the wrong direction. It's when you get stuck in your head, and when you get stuck into like the doubt and the like, but what if, this is where you make the quote unquote wrong decisions. Although I do feel like there's not really a wrong decision. It's just you need to do a detour for XYZ reason, or you need to take a bit more your time, or whatever the situation is. But I think intuition, or however you call it, guidance, is
it's that gut feeling, right? It's that, like you just said, it's that intuition, it's that gut feeling, it's your guides, it's God, it's source, it's your angels, it's spirit team. So whatever you feel it is, but whatever it is that you feel, like I love that you said that, you're like, I don't even question, I move. Like immediately, it's like it's not even a leap, it's a full-blown jump, because you practice this feeling of like faith. And I think it's so important to speak to that, especially again now, because so many are being kind of called, whether they realize it or not, to make that jump, to make that leap. And it's hard, right? It's hard at first, when you first do it. And when you were just saying, like, the more you did it, the more it confirmed for you, you were like, affirmed, this is the right thing. This is the right thing. So can you give an example for you?
Yeah, I have a great example.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Tell us an example for you of like when you realize like, oh shit, I need to like actually like trust my intuition. Like there's something here that I need to be paying attention to.
Okay. So when I realized I needed to trust my intuition, I mean, the first moment was, I think it's when I finally admitted to my husband at the time that I wanted a divorce. Because between the time that I had that thought in my head and the day that I packed my bags, there was 2 years. It was 2 years because I was afraid, because I was doubting, because I didn't trust that the voice of, you need to move on, you need a different life, you need to take that step. I was afraid to listen to that because there was so much other thought coming in, and I was getting confused into which of my thought were actually my intuition and which of my thought were fear-based, And so the moment that I left, I was like, oh, like there was such a relief, and there was I never looked back and regretted my decision. And that was such a confirmation. There was never a moment of doubt once the decision was taken that, oh, did I do the right thing? It was so clear. And then you have this discussion with yourself of like, so why did it take you so long? Like what slowed you down so much? And I think it was for the best, and it happened in the best way possible when I look at it now. But there's also a part of me that like, maybe I didn't need 2 years. Like maybe I could have moved through this a different way. Where like now where I was going when I said I have a great example, I kind of was thinking on how I move quickly now versus at that moment in my life. And one thing is I live in Costa Rica now. And most people, when they hear the story of how I got to Costa Rica, they think I'm insane. They think I'm insane. They're like, so why did you decide to go to Costa Rica? I'm like, well, I was sitting in meditation and I heard that I needed to go to Costa Rica. And they're like, okay. And I'm like, well, 10 days later, I had sold everything and I was here. They were like, 10 days? I'm like, yeah. As soon as I heard it, I was like, done. We're going. Like definitely no more doubt.
I'm like,
definitely.
hands up. I love it because like this, like not to come back to me, but like when I was living in LA, like I literally was meditating. I was just like breathing through and I was journaling and I was like heavily meditating. And I heard like, you're done in California. Like LA is done. You're done in the celebrity styling world. Like I just heard it all. I done. And I was like, what, and I just like didn't really believe it. And I kind of just like ignored it. And then I heard it again, like when after like the pandemic hit and everything else happened. And it was like, and it was like, you're done. It's time to move. Like you're done with the West Coast. It's done. And I was just like, and that time I finally like felt like that, because like how you said, like you can kind of make other decisions, but oh no, and keep ignoring it and whatever. Then you start to learn why. And that was like me. And then everything changed, especially in California. And I was with my husband and I was like, it's time for us to move. And he was like, what? And we had been there for, 11 years. And he's like, my job's here, your job's here. Like, what are we going to do? And I was like, I don't really fully understand, but like, I just know like we need to go. Like, this is a wrap.
That's the key.
Yeah. And we went to Tennessee, and Tennessee came to us like just by sitting and talking and I was meditating and then it was like, Tennessee, like, you know what I mean? So to me, this is amazing and not
for you. That makes sense.
Yeah. I make sense and I love it. But I also would love this for my audience too, that are listening or watching, because like, no matter what you're doing right now, or you're like watching or listening, like if you have that moment, if you have that feeling of like, I need to do this, do it, like figure it out and do it. Don't wait to like Erika's point. So yeah, go back to what you were saying. But I just had to say, I was like, yes, like, I was just like getting like literally like chills when you were talking.
I mean, it's just a difference of like, I've probably heard that voice about the divorce hundreds of times before I finally took the steps and listened, where now I hear that voice once and I'm like, I'm in, let's go. Right. So it's a very different approach to life, and that allows you to awaken with a bit less suffering. I think like it's a little bit more graceful because you don't fight it so much, and that makes it lovely.
I love that. And I love that you said that too, because I think so much, right, especially in the spiritual community, like talks about the dark night of the soul and how intense it can be, and how, like you just said, like the suffering. And it's true, like I've been there and I'm sure you have too, and it can be so intense. But it's like also understanding that like what Erika's saying is like, don't be afraid. Like once you make the choice and you take the leap and you really believe and you really listen in, like things do become more in flow. Like you do start to like have that much more gratitude. All of a sudden you're like, oh, it's working. Oh, wait, like it, and I've had those moments too. Right. But it's hard to get there. It's hard to allow yourself to get there. Once you do, like you're saying, for you, there is no question anymore. As soon as you hear it, as soon as you feel it, it's done. It's considered done before you've even done it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, I mean, moving into the work you do now and everything you do, which is so powerful and so incredible, like what made you like, what gave you the calling to step into this work and essentially empower others to be able to do this, and the different things that, you decided to train in to, be able to provide this space to so many who especially need it now?
Yeah. I think I always had a desire to help, and I was always kind of a teacher. Like before being a yoga teacher and a coach, I was a school teacher, and I burned out because it's a very hard system to work in. And I grew up in a family of teachers. And so like, it was always kind of part of who I was, and I wanted to do that. And when I burned out and I took a year off on medical leave, I came back and I was like, okay, what else can I teach? Like, do I have to go back to school, and can I teach something else? And the only thing I was like really passionate at that point with was yoga. And I was like, oh, I could teach yoga. Like I can help people. And at that moment, it was more about like coming out of the numbness. Like that was my focus in the beginning, like help people feel their bodies again. because I had, a decade of eating disorder behind me and like a complete disconnect from my body. And that led me astray in some ways. So I was like, oh, I need to help people reconnect to their body. And then that led into like, oh, then what next? Like, then, you know, once you feel like, what can you do with those feelings? And so like it kind of snowballed into wanting to help more and further than just not just what yoga can do. I'm going to take that back. Just the physical aspect of the practice. So I kind of went deeper into everything that yoga can help you with, like the mental aspect, the spiritual aspect. And then I felt kind of restrained into like the 1 hour where I had to like push my little nuggets of gold in between inhale, arms up, and exhale, arms down. Like I did feel like I had a lot of space to like teach all the things I wanted to teach to people and like talk about the things that at that point started to matter more than me, than the body, because I was further on that journey. Right. And so from there, it like evolved into like, how can I talk to people about this without having them on their mat? And that led me into coaching, and that led me into like, how can I help people further but keep the two together? So that's why Somatic came along. It's like I didn't want to do like talk coaching. I wanted people to feel their bodies. Still, there's kind of a thread there, feel the energy, move that out, and like stop working at like the mind over matter concept and like kind of cancel that and be like, no, like get out of your head and let your body lead the way. Let that voice of intuition, for me, that came when the body was reconnected in. So this is how I kind of wanted to move through this. And then just because of the power of yoga retreats in like my own experience, I wanted to give that to people as well, to have like 7 days of immersion, intense work where like you have nothing else in your life that's kind of in the way, right? Like you're just all in. There's so much power in that. So that felt really important for me to kind of include in that. And there's also the side of just giving space to people that I didn't have like in a 1 hour session, right? So like being with people for for all day, for 7 days, and just opening the connection to a much deeper level was something I was really looking forward to, like as a way to really connect to people. I'm not one to like enjoy small talk to start with, like in life, right? Like if we're friends, like I want to know about all the dark things that are going on in your brain. So it was important for me to have a space to open that communication with my students and my clients as well.
Yeah, I love that. And obviously being a certified breath, practitioner and trauma informed and all that, I can obviously really get behind, that healing, that feeling. It's so true. When we feel like we actually heal, we start to actually receive what we need. There is no like mindset, like you said, like the brain, like, or the ego, like trying to tell you like, hey, this is what's going on. It's like, nope, that's gone. You're actually in the body. The body is the channel. It's giving you exactly what you need. So I love what you just spoke to. And I love too that you said, like that feeling, like when you actually feel like for you, like you registered like, oh, this is actually what I need. Oh, this is actually what I'm not dealing with. And our bodies tell us, our bodies don't lie. We just like to make excuses why our body's doing something, but it's like, no. The body's giving it to you for a reason. It is the mass messenger. It is the channel. Like let it give you what it needs.
Yeah.
And
there's a language we need to learn there.
Yes, exactly. And for anyone that doesn't know, when she talks about, soma coaching, soma means body. So she's really talking about truly getting into the body and doing that work. And, that's what you're really experiencing, when you're allowing those 4 pillars to come online, which Erika spoke to, which was, the emotional, the physical, the spiritual, and the mental to all come together. It's not just one thing. I feel like, Erika, and I know you get this as a coach, like, I feel like I've learned too over the years as I've gotten more into the coaching space is like, we've been taught for so long, mindset work. And it's interesting because even in my own journey, like when I was so into meditation after my postpartum depression, and I swear meditation saved my life, like truly feel it saved my life. But then when lovely 2020 hit for like so many of us, we all like lost our minds. And for me, I was trying to meditate and I was, but nothing was shifting. And I was like, what is going on? Why is nothing happening for me? So when you were speaking to how it was like, okay, yoga is beautiful and amazing, but like, how else can I use more tools to get into, and threaded that all in? I relate so heavily to that. And I'm sure so many others do too, because like when you find one practice, it's like, it's true. You do, like, if you allow the deepness, if you allow the essentially pulling back of layers, you do thread in, and then there's more tools, and then there's more tools, And so I think it's awesome that you spoke to that, because for you, it's been like ongoing, like, what else can I empower myself with? What else is working for me? And then how do I share it and put it out there?
Exactly. I think one of the big shifts was like nervous system regulation. When I started to learn these, I was like, oh, wait, shaking can have that effect on me. Dancing can have that effect on me. Things that are not part of a quote unquote traditional yoga practice, but nowadays I include in my yoga classes, right? Like,
I love
because it adds an extra layer of how you can work that energy through. And like you're saying, you're sitting in meditation, and that will help for certain things. And for other things, it's not going to do it. You need to move. You need to make a drastic shift in your energy. You need to meet that energy where it is. I often tell my students, if you're feeling really agitated, meditation is not the answer. You're going to sit in meditation and you're going to fight with yourself the whole time that you're there, because your brain is going to ping pong and tornado around your head. What you need to do first is something that matches that agitated energy. You need to dance. You need to shake. You need maybe to go for a run, or to do a physical practice that is repetitive, that is a little bit quicker, that you need to meet that type of energy first to kind of, quote unquote, burn it through. Like, you need to meet yourself where you are, instead of reject your experience and be like, no, I'm going to sit in meditation quiet. And like, you bully yourself into that, and this is not going to work. Right. So I think that's a simple example for people to understand. Like, if you're sitting in meditation and it's not working, you might need to do something completely different before you can sit in meditation. And then when you sit and you have moved that energy through, all of a sudden you're like, oh, now meditation and its benefits can come to you, because it's the kind of right order for your nervous system.
Yeah, I love that you said meet yourself where you are. That's really powerful, because I think you're right. So many of us like push through an experience, or like push through an emotion. It's like, no, it's meant to be felt. And when you speak to the nervous system, of course, we both know from our own trainings, like everything is there in the nervous system. And once your parasympathetic nervous system can actually be where it's meant to be, at that rest and digest place, then you regulate and you're like, oh, everything just starts to like click. And then you're no longer questioning, and you're no longer in fight or flight. You're no longer triggering like all the things that happen within us, especially because all the noise outside of us. And so it's true. It's like when you come home to that system and can feel regulated, it's like, oh, okay. Now I can figure things out. Now I know what's going on, And so anyone listening or, watching, like, just even that alone, think about that the next time something happens, and like ask yourself, like, am I in a regulated system? Because it will change, as Erika said, like your perspective of everything. And I love that you said, like truly meet you where you are in that moment. So, I mean, so much gold there, Erika. So I want to know, before we wrap things up, I want to know, like, for you going through that awakening, all these different peeling back of layers for you, to then creating this incredible, life, work that you're doing, and your true soul purpose, and where you are. What would you say to someone right now who is possibly going through an awakening, or is in a dark night of the soul, or they're somewhere in this space where, they're just not sure what they're doing? Maybe they feel crazy, like you were saying, and people were saying about your move to Costa Rica. Like, what would you say to them to, give them that empowerment in what they're going through, and also like how they're going to be able to step into their next level of work, of their true soul purpose of what they're doing?
I think the first step is compassion, because if you're struggling, chances are your thoughts are leading you into some, you're not doing it right, you're not enough. Like, there's a thought pattern there that is bringing you down. Like, there's some negative self-talk for sure. So my first idea would be like, soften, have a little grace for yourself, and like know that the work of awakening can be difficult, but it's worth it. So you need just to like, sometimes we need to take a step back and be like, wow, I've done all this. I've gone through all these awakenings already. Like, I know I will be okay on the other side. And just like you were talking about, like we tend to push through a lot of things. And if that's your tendency, then this message is for you. Soften. That would be the first step. Then, what was the second part of your question?
I love that. Soften. I think that's so powerfully said and can mean so much depending on who is receiving it right now, what that softening means to you. And again, checking in with your nervous system and asking, like, what does that mean to you? But that's so powerful. And I was just saying, like, they're going through it, right? And then they really think they know their soul purpose, or maybe they don't know their soul purpose, but they know what they're doing right now is not serving them. It's not what they want. They burned out, like you spoke to, which many of us do. I have. What would you say to someone who's like, they're going through it and they want to get to the other side? So they're allowing hopefully the softening at some point. They're surrendering to what we're speaking to. What's on the other side?
So I think what's on the other side is listening. Instead of trying to figure it out as you soften, like your mantra could be as simple as I am listening. And I use that for years in my yoga practice. Like I am listening. And it really connects you to that voice and to the intuition. And I was talking earlier that at a moment in my life, I didn't know if it was the voice of intuition or the voice of fear. And I think when you learn to regulate your nervous system and you're in that space you were talking about of like the relaxed state, the voice is always intuition, right? So like when you are feeling unsure, when you're feeling doubtful, bring yourself to safety. If you can bring yourself to a place where you feel safe within yourself, you're at home within yourself, everything is going to feel like it makes more sense. And you have more clarity of mind and you have more clarity of like, what's the next step I need to take, right? You're able to slow it down. If it's a tornado, you're not in a safety place. You're in a feel of fight or flight response, right? You're like in a, oh my God, what's going to happen? Fear base. If you're in fear, if you're in worry, bring yourself into safety and then listen. That would be the next step.
I love that. I think that's so powerful. It's so true. It's like finding what your safety is for everyone. It's different. You're 100% right. But the thing that we all have in common as humans is the nervous system. So checking in with that and really asking yourself, like, do I feel good in my body? And also, like, do I feel at home? It's like able to come home to yourself. So I love that. And I think I would just say, like, my last question would be, with what you're doing now and how powerful your work is and everything you're getting to do, like, what would you say to someone that, would ask you, like, what is it like being where you are now when before you were like made this jump and, 10 days later we're in Costa Rica. And I'm sure in that moment it was not, I'm sure the intuition was crystal clear, but everything else was not. What would you say with where you are now?
I feel like it's just a continuous work. Like there's not a arriving point, but I am in a place in my life now where I can savor the wins a little bit more. And I'm a bit less in a rush to get to the next awakening, which is nice.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And I love that you're like, I'm not in a rush. I think that's also something I'm learning too, like really relishing and celebrating yourself and those wins and those moments instead of just rushing to check off the next box and the next box and, oh, what else am I going to do? And just really like feeling like you said, like that softening even goes along with that, in my opinion, of like,
absolutely.
Okay, like I'm just receiving this. I'm just allowing this, I'm just being in this. So, this conversation just lit me up so much. I just love you and think everything you're doing is so powerful and so incredible. So, thank you so much for being here. And guys, stay tuned because Erika and I have been chatting about some future 2023 collaborations. So, you'll be hearing about that soon enough. Erika, tell us where we can find you, follow you. If they do want to do a retreat with you, work with you, I'm going to have everything in the show notes.
Yeah. So my website is my name, erikabelanger.com. You'll find me on Instagram, erika.belanger, or the podcast page, which is On and Off Your Mat Podcast. You can find the podcast anywhere you listen to this podcast. You will have it there as well. And if you want to get on the wait list for the retreat, it's actually not open. Like you can't buy yet, but you can get on the wait list. You can do that either in a DM, like send me your name in the in the email contact box, anything like that. We're going to open in the new year. So if you want to be the first to know about the details, it will be in Costa Rica, just saying. If you want to know more about, like, be the first to know all those information, you'll be notified. And there will be also in the new year a group coaching coming up to work on for highly sensitive women that need to let go of overwhelm, emotional overwhelm. They can, the people that feel like if I start to feel, I will never stop. I will drown into the tornado of my feelings. And we're going to do that through nervous system work. So if you're curious about that, you want to learn more, and you're like, yeah, I am one of those sensitive women, then get in touch and we'll talk.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Erika. Everything, guys, will be in the show notes for you to find Erika and to work with her. I hope for anyone watching or listening, this helped you with your awakening, cracking you open, allowing the opening, as Erika so beautifully said. Just know you're not alone on this journey. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. I'll see y'all next time. Love, light, and blessings. Bye, y'all.